Eric stood alone against two bullies who hid behind their family's power and influence, lacking real strength or character. Relying on agility and sharp tactics, he swiftly took them down, leaving them sprawled on the floor in mere moments. 3 months earlier, the story rewinds. A fork slipped from someone's grasp and hit the ground immediately. The air at the dinner table grew heavy with tension. Eric's stepfather didn't overlook the small incident. He shut the door and taught Eric a lesson through violence. His mother, though fully aware, could only watch in silence, convincing herself that these beatings would make him more obedient. After each ordeal, Eric was forced to put on a facade of reconciliation with the very man who had inflicted so much pain on him. Over time, violence became a routine part of his life, but with it, a deep-seated resentment took root, smoldering like an ember, waiting for the moment it would erupt into flames. Eric barely acknowledged the principal's threats as he walked away. Meanwhile, his mother had sold some of the family's artwork to establish a fund for him, determined to help him complete his studies. She urged him to meet her friend Gunnar, a lawyer. When they met, Gunnar handed Eric his business card, advising him to call if he ever needed help. Eric simply stared at the card, unsure of what to say. After Gunnar left, his mother made no effort to hide her disappointment over his expulsion. Then, without warning, she announced that she had enrolled him in Starburg, an all-boys boarding school. This was his last chance, she stressed, and she hoped he would take it seriously without repeating his past mistakes. Eric nodded, vowing to do better this time. He swore he would graduate without facing expulsion again. Upon arriving at his new school, he donned the uniform and had his hair neatly trimmed. His roommate, Pierre, was the top student in the school, but to Eric's surprise, he was also friendly and approachable. The two quickly formed a bond. As night fell, Eric and Pierre hurried to the dining hall for dinner. There, they met Johan, another student who introduced Eric to the school's traditions. Johan explained that here, the way others treated you depended entirely on your social standing. Just as Johan finished speaking, he noticed a student sitting next to Eric's. It was Otto and Alan, sons of wealthy noble families, while the boy they called came from an ordinary background. Otto and Alan were notorious for bullying less fortunate students, acting with impunity thanks to their family's strong influence over the school. With no fear of expulsion, they did as they pleased. To make matters worse, both held positions on the student council, granting them the authority to punish others without facing any consequences. The next morning at breakfast, Otto and Delay called Eric over, claiming they wanted to welcome him with a traditional initiation ceremony for new students. However, Eric firmly refused. Johan became the one to suffer the consequences. Meanwhile, Otto and Dylan wasted no time planning their next act of bullying, this time targeting Eric. They summoned him to their headquarters and ordered him to clean a pile of filthy shoes scattered on the floor. Once again, Eric refused and walked away without hesitation. Furious, Dylan turned to Otto, demanding to know how they should handle him. But Otto, unfazed, told Dylan to leave Eric alone for now. Later, Eric recounted everything to Pierre. Pierre's expression tightened as he listened to Eric's story. He warned him not to keep defying Otto and Delane, explaining that those who resisted them often faced harsh consequences. But Eric, once a bully himself, brushed off the warning. He boldly declared that he wasn't afraid of them and would never take orders from the likes of Otto and Dylan. That night, he and Pierre discussed ways to stand up against their bullying without resorting to violence. However, every option seemed nearly impossible. Most students at the school preferred submission over the brutal reality of being beaten. The next day, as Eric walked through the school hallway, Dylan accidentally bumped into him. Instead of brushing it off, Dylan demanded an apology. But Eric, knowing it wasn't his fault, flatly refused. Infuriated, Dylan challenged him to a fight that evening at a designated spot. Eric arrived at the meeting place with Pierre and Johan by his side. Before the fight, Pierre gave him a final warning. Otto and Dylan never fought fair. They always brought backup to overwhelm their opponents. That night, Eric was ready to accept Dylan's challenge. But as he recalled his mother's words urging him to stay out of trouble so he could graduate, he reconsidered. Instead of going to the fight, he stayed in his room where Pierre helped him calm his nerves. Meanwhile, Otto and Dylan waited at the designated spot, growing impatient as the hours passed. When Eric never showed up, Otto smirked, convinced that Eric was too afraid to face them.
Erik Ponti!
He mockingly declared Eric a coward. The next day, Otto publicly condemned students who defied the student council's authority, placing Eric at the top of the list. In a mock trial, Otto, as student council president, sentenced him to a month of hard labor, forcing him to dig a 1-meter deep trench around the school. Eric worked tirelessly through the night but couldn't finish the task on time. As a result, he was forced to eat dinner alone in the hallway. While he ate, Maria, a cafeteria worker, approached him. Amused, she smiled and told Eric that he reminded her of her brother. Maria went on to explain that her brother, much like Eric, had a rebellious streak, always refusing to submit to authority. Later that evening, she unexpectedly reappeared and gently reminded him to take care of his health. Then, without warning, she kissed and embraced him. Both knew the risks they were taking. A romantic relationship between a student and a staff member was strictly forbidden, and if discovered, the consequences would be severe. Eric could face expulsion, and Maria would lose her job instantly. That night, neither Eric nor Maria cared about the rules. During Christmas break, when Eric returned home, his mother welcomed him warmly, but his stepfather remained cold and distant. Without hesitation, he began interrogating Eric about the punishments he had received, including his suspension from school. Eric answered bluntly. He had refused to follow the orders of another student, who just happened to be the son of a powerful aristocratic family. His stepfather scoffed at the explanation, insisting that someone from such a prestigious background deserved respect and obedience. He then berated Eric for his poor grades and the punishments he had brought upon himself. Eric's stepfather beat him once again, while his mother, fully aware of his suffering, chose to look the other way. When the Christmas break ended, Eric returned to school. The first thing he did was rush to see Maria. He had missed her deeply. Under the moonlight, they reunited, holding each other tightly, finding solace in each other's embrace. Meanwhile, Otto and Dylan, upon learning of Eric's return, devised another prank. This time, they planned to douse him with filthy water while he slept. However, their scheme failed. Eric and Pierre woke up immediately and swiftly cleaned up the mess before it could escalate. This time, Eric refused to stay silent. He wanted revenge. Under the cover of night, he quietly slipped into Otto's room, switched off the lights, and poured the same filthy water over him while he slept. The next morning, in the bustling dining hall, Eric made sure everyone was listening. Taking a deep breath, he dramatically exclaimed,
Konstigt, det är ingen som känner att det luktar.
He then wandered around the room, pretending to follow an invisible scent trail, until he stopped right in front of Otto. Eric loudly declared,
Stinker skiten igen.
Otto swung a brutal punch at Eric's face, but even as pain shot through him, Eric didn't fight back. He had made a promise to his mother to stay out of trouble. Meanwhile, the principal and teachers, seated at a nearby table, continued eating as if nothing had happened, indifferent to the violence unfolding before them. Just then, Maria stepped in.
Sluta!
But what disappointed her most was Eric's unwavering restraint. He refused to retaliate no matter how much he was provoked. Realizing they couldn't break Eric, Otto and Dylan shifted their focus. This time, they set their sights on Pierre, Eric's roommate and only true friend at school. During lunch, Otto called Pierre over, but Pierre refused, standing his ground. But Otto was not one to give up so easily. After the final class of the day, he cornered Pierre, challenging him outright and making it clear refusal was not an option. If Pierre didn't participate, there would be consequences. Otto and Alan had planned this carefully. By targeting Pierre, they hoped to force Eric's hand. They knew Eric would never stand by and watch his best friend suffer. Their true goal was to drag him into the fight, to make him feel like he had no choice but to confront them because in their minds, no one dared to defy the power of Otto and Alan. That night, Pierre had no choice but to accept. He made his way to the battleground where Otto, Dylan, and their gang were already waiting. He knew that if he wanted to walk away with his dignity intact, he would have to fight with everything he had. Pierre's strength was completely depleted, and with just a light strike from Otto, he crumpled to the ground. Eric stood frozen, unable to believe what he was seeing, his best friend broken and humiliated, treated as nothing more than a joke. By the time he arrived, it was too late to stop the cruelty. All he could do was lift Pierre onto his back and carry him to their room, carefully tending to his wounds. Once he was sure Pierre was stable, Eric urged him to rest before quietly stepping out. That night, he met with Maria, but by morning, the threats returned. Troubled by Pierre's condition, Eric rushed back to his room, unwilling to leave his friend's side any longer. When Eric returned to his room, a hollow silence greeted him. Pierre was gone. There was no question Pierre had made his choice. He had left the school for good. Only a single letter remained on the bed, a quiet farewell. With a heavy heart, Eric unfolded the note and began to read. In it, Pierre apologized for leaving so suddenly but assured Eric that their friendship was real. He urged Eric not to give up, to keep fighting against Otto and his followers, and to put an end to the tyranny that had ruled the school unchecked for so long. As Eric absorbed Pierre's words, something ignited within him. A fierce determination, sharper than ever before. He finally had a purpose. He would make Otto pay not just for Pierre, but for every student who had suffered under his cruelty. An hour later, Eric stood in the ring, not against Otto just yet, but against Elaine and von Scheneen, two towering opponents, both physically imposing but entirely dependent on their family's influence rather than their own skill. Size meant nothing to Eric. With precision and speed, he dismantled them in mere moments, sending both crashing to the ground before they even had a chance to react. As the dust settled, Eric turned to Otto, locking eyes with him. Shock flickered across Otto's face. He hadn't expected Eric to take down his strongest enforcers so effortlessly. Stepping forward, Eric issued his final challenge. Otto was next. But before facing him, Eric had something more important to do. He made his way to the school kitchen, searching for Maria. When he arrived, a female staff member informed him that Maria had been fired and had already left the school. The staff member quietly handed Eric a letter from Maria, just as Pierre had left one before disappearing. A deep ache settled in his chest as he realized she was truly gone. But Eric wasn't the only one who saw the exchange. One of Otto's lackeys, always lurking in the shadows, noticed the letter and wasted no time reporting it. It didn't take long. That night, Otto and his gang stormed into Eric's room, overturning everything in sight, searching for anything they could use against him. After tearing through his belongings, they found what they were looking for, Maria's letter. Otto snatched it up and read it aloud, his smug expression growing with each word. The secret was out. Eric and Maria had broken the school's strict rules, and now Otto had undeniable proof. With the letter in his hands, Otto finally had the weapon he needed to destroy Eric once and for all. Wasting no time, Otto rushed to the principal's office, presenting the letter as undeniable proof of Eric's misconduct. The principal immediately summoned Eric, and without a second thought, expelled him for violating school rules, especially for his relationship with Maria. Eric took the punishment without protest, but before leaving, he made a single request to have Maria's letter back. It was the only thing he had left of her. The principal refused. Without a hint of sympathy, he locked the letter away in his desk drawer, sealing it from Eric forever. But Eric wasn't broken. If anything, the fire inside him burned brighter. He had nothing left to lose. Otto had taken everything from him, but Eric wasn't done yet. Expelled or not, he would make sure Otto paid for everything he had done at Starburg. With nothing left to lose, Eric followed Otto's trail and found him walking alone in the woods. Facing Otto, Eric held a stick, pointing it directly at him and demanding that he kneel. Confronted by Eric's determination, Otto, in sheer panic, immediately knelt down. In desperation, Otto hastily handed Eric $10,000 as a bribe to save his life. However, Eric refused, ready to attack Otto. The boy was completely broken, crying and pleading for his life, even vomiting out of fear. Seeing this, Eric suddenly stopped, put his hands on Otto's face, and said that he would not kill him. He was not like Otto, who took pleasure in torturing others. After leaving Otto behind, Eric returned to the school to pack his belongings, preparing for the next chapter of his life. As he was packing, he suddenly remembered Gunnar the lawyer who had once told him to reach out if he ever needed help. Without hesitation, Eric dialed his number. Not long after, Gunnar arrived in Starburg. After listening to Eric's story, he agreed to help. Together, they headed to the principal's office, where the man sat drinking with a few faculty members, indulging himself as if nothing was wrong. Eric firmly pleaded with him not to expel him from the school and demanded the return of Maria's letter. At first, the principal flatly refused, but just then, Gunnar stepped into the room and threatened to publicly expose the culture of class discrimination and bullying that the principal and his staff had deliberately ignored. With no other option, the principal was forced to concede, agreeing to all of Eric's demands. He dissolved the student council led by Otto, putting an end to its reign of intimidation. Eric was deeply grateful to Gunnar without his help. Staying at Starburg and dismantling Otto's oppressive rule would have been impossible. With Otto and his supporters gone, peace gradually returned to the school, allowing Eric to enjoy his remaining days until graduation. His mother was overjoyed and proud of his accomplishments, but his stepfather remained unimpressed, continuing to criticize Eric's actions and choices at school. As his stepfather raised his hand to strike him once more, Eric finally stood his ground. He declared that this would be the last time violence ruled their family. With unwavering resolve, he forced his stepfather out of the house, putting an end to the years of oppression. Sometime later, Eric was reunited with his friend who was preparing to continue his studies in Geneva. Before parting ways, they promised each other that one day, in the near future, they would meet again.